Welcome to another episode of the Manchester SEO podcast, and today we have Stephanie Newton, who's a wellbeing practitioner and expert, and come to talk to us about what she does. Hello.
Hello, thanks for having me.
You're welcome. So tell the listeners, viewers, who you are and what you do.
Okay, so I'm a wellbeing practitioner based in Wilmslow, and I offer therapy to people with a variety of issues, just to help them to feel more positive and happier in their lives.
Okay. Well, we all need that, don't we?
Definitely.
What kind of techniques do you specialise in?
So I offer advanced clinical hypnotherapy, EFT, which stands for Emotional Freedom Technique, and havening.
And havening. I've not heard of havening. What does that involve?
So havening, it's a psychosensory technique that involves stroking the arms, the face, the hands, as you are tuning into various maybe traumatic memories that you've experienced. For example, it could be a car crash or even something further back in your childhood that may be the root cause of however you're feeling now. So if you're suffering from anxiety, then potentially a memory from the past has caused you to feel anxiety now. So what the havening does, it floods the amygdala, which is in charge of the emotional side of your thinking, with delta waves. And what that does is it transfers the memory from the amygdala over to the hippocampus, so that memory no longer affects you. It's like a decoding process.
Wowza. So like a programmer for the mind.
Yes, it's amazing. Yeah, it's really effective.
That's interesting to hear what you're doing, the effects, biological effects, and what you're doing and why. It's fascinating. Mm-hmm. Hypnotherapy.
Yes, yeah. So hypnotherapy, that's a deep. It's basically just a more deeply relaxed state. So it's really important to be able to relax in a session and have a really good relationship with your client in the session, so that they can feel at ease. So hypnotherapy it's a really effective technique that allows people to go back into the past and resolve any kind of challenges that they've had in the past, again, that's contributing to their wellness now, or that's actually having a debilitating effect on their mind. Sure. So going through that healing process whilst under trance is very powerful. And
you mentioned, was it EFT?
Yeah, so that's the tapping therapy. Okay. A lot of people have seen maybe demonstrations of this. So it's tapping here, and these are the Chinese meridian points. Sure. And as you're tapping on these Chinese meridian points, it's actually a way of clearing the negative energy and clearing out memories and emotions that, again, are associated with how people are feeling now, because there's usually a root cause to anxiety, mild depression, phobias, even emotional eating. Sure. There's usually some memories that are stored in the subconscious that are driving people's behaviours. So the subconscious is actually 30,000 times more powerful than the conscious mind. So whatever's going on in there, whatever memories are unresolved, are going to cause people to maybe feel more anxious or depressed or something.
That's amazing. It's amazing what you hold in your body. I had an experience like that when my son was young and wasn't sleeping, and I started looking for ways to feel more awake at work in the office, and I got into Wim Hof breathing techniques, and I remember having this overwhelming emotional kind of period with it, because from what I had read and seen, it's quite common. There are actually a lot of pent-up emotions you're holding in your chest and stomach muscles, and it was supposedly releasing.
Oh, definitely. Well, that's what happens, especially with the EFT. I do ask my clients to tune into the emotions in their bodies, to really, recognise where they're feeling this maybe sadness or anger, it's, you know, quite a lot of the time it's in people's chests or their stomachs, their throats, even the shoulders or the legs or the hands, you know, if they're angry. And when you're tapping on those Chinese meridian points and really acknowledging the emotion, the shape of it, the colour of it, you know, how it feels, whether it's heavy or whether it's light, people will find that the emotion just begins to shift as they do this tapping technique.
Okay. And so you must have quite I imagine it's really useful in many different walks of life, like individuals in the workplace, maybe sport as well, for performance. And people now talk about cricket quite a lot, and there's a lot of internal chatter that goes on when you're playing, when you're either in the field or as a captain or batting, you know, and it can really affect your performance. I've waffled there, but my question was going to be, what types of work that you do? Who do you work with, Anna?
Well, I work with a whole range of individuals and also corporates as well. So working with the corporates, I'll initially do a full consultation to ensure that whatever they need in their company is tailored to their what they're looking for. So for example, some companies like me to come in and do a presentation to all of their employees to introduce them to the therapies, and then that may progress, and I'll work with employees individually or in groups doing workshops, which is absolutely fantastic. So with the variety of therapies I use, it's quite often really appealing because people relate to different therapies, and each one of them is just as effective. Sure. So, or some people like to integrate all three. So another thing is that with the mindfulness sessions that I offer, it is just a case of people sat in a room, just relaxing, closing their eyes, and, you know, focusing on what's going on in their own minds, and, you know, the rest of the room is doing their own thing. So it's really an amazing experience because it's quite a deeply relaxing experience for the employees, which is really, really good. And then I also work with individuals as well, helping them with weight loss, quit smoking, anxiety, mild depression, relationship issues, all sorts of different things, phobias, stress.
Real wide range of things. So in the corporate world, since COVID, more people are working in a hybrid way or from home all the time. Have you become more in need? Are companies more aware of having to help their staff a bit more with mental well-being?
Absolutely, yeah. So especially since COVID, I think where people, it did bring about a lot of stress and upset for people and make them feel quite isolated, which was difficult to deal with. And now coming out of that, people might find it more difficult to socialise, you know, in the sense that, you know, it's something new again and it can have an impact on somebody's confidence. But, you know, there were also a lot of people who enjoyed lockdown, you know, working from home. And I think that although a lot of people are enjoying still working from home, that can still bring about a sense of isolation because at the end of the day, somebody is at home on their own, or as opposed to being in an office, which is buzzing and full of life and energetic. So it just depends, really.
I've always liked the option. And the variety of having the choice to go in or the choice to stay at home. And sometimes is it split personality? Sometimes I want that, sometimes I want the other, and it's nice to have the option. I think sometimes being with people makes me happy, like stimulates this. We talk about in the last 5 episodes has been a talk about a need. A thirst for humanity in the world, and we're all very usually comes up with AI topics and stuff like that, where so the human contact I think is important. Do you, do you, well, you obviously agree.
Well, yes, I think so, because I think that, you know, relationships are very central to people's lives, and having a social life, and it really is really uplifting for people and makes them realise that they have that support network as well. And whether people recognise it consciously or not, you know, that social network is there.
Sure.
And whether that be at work or at home, it's really important to nurture that. But the good thing about COVID was that people became so open about their mental health, and I don't know if you noticed on LinkedIn, but a lot of people were more vulnerable and talking about how they feel, and I think that's been a real game changer actually for a lot of corporates, because people are actually opening up and letting their employers know, actually I'm feeling like this, and this is why, you know, maybe I'm not progressing, or maybe I'm not achieving the goals. And it's really, really nice, because I think employers are now listening and taking that seriously and taking steps to do something about it, which is fantastic.
Yeah. I've seen that you've been a guest speaker on Silk Radio.
Yes.
How did that come about?
Oh gosh, well, I think I got in touch with the radio station, and I said to them that I'd be really interested in coming on to be a guest speaker. And to be honest, I only expected it would be a one-off sort of thing really, but then it just went really well, and I think the radio station really liked the fact that now they have me coming in to discuss different mental health tips for their listeners, and I think it's something their listeners really appreciate. And I do, you know, I have people from who are listeners of Silk Radio calling me up and saying, you know, I've got this issue and that issue, what do you think? And then they come in for a session and they feel so much better, so much happier, like a weight has been lifted. So it's been really good to be able to share the benefits of my therapies, but also to consider how, you know, people are, you know, coping strategies to offer people at different times of the year. So, for example, you know, Valentine's Day that's just gone, a lot of single people might feel very lonely or depressed because, you know, they don't have a partner to go out and celebrate. They might feel left out. So it's about sharing mental health tips that's going to help people to feel much happier and resilient. And Mother's Day coming up as well, you know, that can be a really sensitive topic for a lot of people for various reasons. So yeah.
When we're talking about grief, do people I'm searching for a good question really, but when people are experiencing grief, obviously it can linger for a long time, it can disappear, it can come back for whatever reason, just like that. Is there any coping strategies, mechanisms you'd have to help people as the struggling with that?
I think with grief, I think that it generally does take about a year to move forwards for a lot of people. So, you know, going through all those anniversaries such as birthdays, Christmas, special times of the year, that first year is really difficult because obviously it's still very fresh. Another thing is, you know, to consider is, you know, how would that person who has passed away feel if they saw you unhappy? I mean, I'm sure that whoever it is that's passed away would want you to be living your best life, and they want to see that you're happy. So whatever your belief system, you know, it can be really helpful to think about how that person would want you to feel. Because some people feel quite guilty about going out, having a good time, or laughing, or, you know, something like that if they were very close to that person. So, yeah, I mean, grief is a really powerful emotion. And if you are struggling with grief beyond a year, I would highly recommend coming to see a therapist. The therapies I apply are very powerful for therapy. So the havening in particular, it's a very gentle technique that just offers so much relief.
I suppose there's different reasons for the way they're feeling as well. Sometimes it might be guilt, it's not just feeling and missing them or anything like that. There could be a lot that's going on that would cause them to feel unhappy.
Yeah, absolutely. There's so many emotions surrounding any issue. There can be lots of aspects to grief, to anxiety, depression. With grief, there could be even unresolved anger, that somebody has towards somebody who's passed away, especially if it's a family member, that there was unresolved issues when that person was alive. So with my therapies, it's releasing all of the potential emotions. I mean, there is a whole spectrum of emotions. Now,
I suppose it was always the buzz thing with the celebrity hypnotherapists and all that is phobias and working with phobias, stopping smoking, any kind of eating addictions or drugs or alcohol or whatever. This must be something that you come across quite a lot.
Yeah, well, I think with helping people to reduce their drinking, that's something that is quite easy to do, in the sense that if somebody is just having a bottle of wine every night, or they're drinking a lot at weekends and they're finding it quite overwhelming, that they feel like they're not really in control of it anymore, then hypnotherapy can help with all of the underlying emotions that's causing somebody to drink too much. So there could be an element of sadness in there, people often trying to drown out stress or anxiety, whatever it might be. They might be drinking to boost their confidence. There's usually a secondary gain to drinking, so getting to the root cause and finding out why that person is feeling the way they do and what's contributed to that, and clearing out all of that trauma, it just naturally happens that people begin to drink less, even if that's not the prime goal for the therapy. People might come in to see me for anxiety or depression, and then they'll find that they naturally stop drinking. But then I think if somebody is a hardened alcoholic or a hardened drug user, then that's a bit more difficult for me to treat. They'd probably have to maybe go down another route. But for for people who are just drinking too much but they're still functioning in their life, they're the people I can help. It's when people are no longer able to function due to alcohol or drugs that might be more difficult for me to deal with, really. I can contribute, but it can't be like the overall.
The combination of
something else,
Just taking a step back for a second, what always interesting, what attracts people to the work that they do, and we spoke briefly before about this, and I think it's fascinating, whether it's an experience you have, or there's just like you growing up with your family or something you enjoy doing, and then you use those skills later on in life. Tell us how you got into what first sparked your interest with.
Well, I suppose what first ever sparked my interest, I remember being about 7 years old and watching Paul McKenna on television, and I actually wasn't so interested in the stage hypnosis. No. I mean, that just doesn't interest me at all, because I don't think it's very ethical, to be honest. No. But when he was helping people with the fear of heights, because he had like a separate part of the television programme where he'd help this lady with a fear of heights, and she was really scared about, going up a mountain or to the top of a church tower. And then after a hypnotherapy session, there she was up on this bridge in the middle of the mountains. And I was really wowed by that. I was thinking that is absolutely incredible. And then I've forgotten all about hypnotherapy and everything like that. And, you know, it's just a TV program that I used to watch. But then when I was about 30, I realised that I had an issue with anxiety. And I had tried counselling and CBT in the past, and they just hadn't worked for me. But then I went to see a hypnotherapist, and the whole process just really alleviated a lot of the anxiety. But then when I did my hypnotherapy training, because, well, going back a step, I was actually working as a primary school teacher in Italy while I was having my hypnotherapy.
Okay, that's the story in itself. That sounds amazing.
Yeah, so I'd actually moved out to Italy for a new adventure because I'd always wanted to teach abroad. And whilst out there, I realised that maybe part of the reason I was there was maybe because I was trying to escape my problems in England, you know, for whatever I was going through. It wasn't, there was nothing to run away from as such, but I thought that maybe I'd feel differently if I went out there and explored the world and went travelling. Exactly. But when I got there, I realised that this anxiety was actually still there, and I thought, well, you know, what else can I do? And then it was actually my mum who suggested having some hypnotherapy because it's an alternative approach, and you know, it was a really amazing experience. And then when I got home from Italy, I continued as a primary school teacher, but then I saw a free introduction to advanced clinical hypnotherapy. And I went there and I loved it, so I signed up for the course, and it was the best thing I ever did. And when I was on the course, I experienced regression for the first time. So regression is going back into somebody's childhood to understand the root cause of the anxiety. And when I went back, I realised why I was feeling anxious, and then my mind just cleared automatically because the problem had been resolved. And it was the most magical process I've ever experienced. It was amazing.
It's definitely something that would make you want to help others with as well, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely. It really made me want to share my expertise, because that's what I was learning to do on the course. And because I felt so passionate about it, it's something I'm really good at, really successful, and I really love seeing the difference in my clients.
I bet being a primary school teacher, the skills involved with that as well help you with dealing with people and clients and corporations. You know, if you're doing your skills to multiple people, I'm sure that those kind of that experience probably helps.
Definitely. So I was mostly doing group work initially with Beechwood Cancer Care Centre. So I went in and worked with about 6 people who had either suffered from cancer themselves or had, you know, family members who were ill from cancer or who had passed away from cancer. So it was a really great experience working at Beechwood, and I loved working with the people there. And many of them became clients, private clients who I worked with on a one-to-one basis, and it was so lovely to help them.
So, in your line of work, what are the main challenges at the moment?
Main challenges. I think some people may have a little bit of fear surrounding hypnotherapy, or they may be sceptical about how my therapies work. However, if my clients want to go into hypnosis and they want to make a change in their life, then that's all that's needed. It's so easy, and it's something that you just need to experience yourself before you can really say anything, because a lot of people who are sceptical or have a fear factor, they don't really understand enough about it, or they've never experienced it. So it's not really something that it's all in the mind about why they might be worried or scared about hypnotherapy, and maybe because of what they see on stage with the hypnotists.
They say that you might get them barking like a dog and jumping around the room.
Exactly.
I hear you talking about past life regression on LinkedIn quite a lot. And if you were to joke about that, you'd say, "Oh, am I gonna find out I was Henry VIII in a past life or something?" But it's not that, is it? It's not really that.
No.
Well, how would you explain past life regression?
So it's a technique that I use. It's a hypnotic technique, and when you're under hypnosis, it allows you to go back to a life before you were born. But there's always an objective. So within the consultation, you're finding out exactly what the problem is, and whenever you do any kind of regression, whether it be in this life or a past life, the subconscious mind will go where it needs to go to allow my clients to feel enlightened. Sure. So going back to a past life, you may go back to a memory where so for example, it might be that somebody suffers from claustrophobia, and they'll go back to one of my clients went back to World War II, and he found that he was trapped inside an air raid shelter.
Right, okay.
And so within that hypnosis, that hypnotic healing, we brought him out of the air raid shelter into the fresh air where he could breathe again. And he felt, like it was all spacious again in his mind. So when he woke up, it brought about a new sense of peace, and he didn't suffer from that claustrophobia anymore. It was a really powerful process.
Fascinating. I mean, if anything's going to make you suffer from claustrophobia, being stuck in an air raid shelter would definitely do that. I think it's voodoo, it's the dark arts.
Oh, really? That surprises me.
I had a client call it a con, which then became a client, which was quite interesting. But that's just because that's what there's no real clarity about the works that you have to do and strategies, and perhaps the industry's happy for people to think that. So, but that's a different topic. Do you think people think that about hypnotherapy and other things like that? Like it's woo-woo for the mind or something like that. Would you? Because at the start you talked about how the effects of it in the brain, then it's logical for you to have process whatever's going on, because that's the part of the brain that does that, and you're freeing up the other part. Do you think that there needs to be more education about it?
I would say so, definitely. I mean, it's actually an ancient practice. In India, they used to use hypnosis for anaesthetics. Quite different, aesthetics, anaesthetics.
Pain relief.
Pain relief. So, it was often used in hospitals for that. And they actually do have hypnotherapy on the NHS for IBS. So it is recognised to an extent. However, anybody can walk into a room and everybody will have a whole range of different thoughts. You can't predict what people think, and people will have all sorts of different ideas about hypnotherapy. Some people will be really intrigued by it, want to know more. Some people will be dismissive of it. It really does depend on the person, but obviously until you've tried it, you won't know. And a lot of people who come in skeptics go out converts. So it's really funny actually, because the skeptics are the ones who probably go into hypnosis the deepest, because they're wanting to try it, and there is actually a fear underneath that skepticism. So dealing with that fear and helping them to just relax and come in and enjoy it is it's a pleasure for me, changing people's minds about hypnotherapy.
It's a fascinating the human psyche and behaviours is intrigues me, and why we do what we do, and what causes people to behave in a certain way is really interesting.
I know it is. I really find it so interesting because every one of my clients has a different story, and it's about unpicking their story and their life experience to find out, what it is about their story that's causing them to still feel anxious. And it's always so interesting, no matter what my clients have been through. Sometimes it's quite surprising, actually, because people expect anxiety to stem from a big trauma that may have happened in someone's life. But then on some occasions, it could be just the fact that, when they were 5 years old, they tripped over in the playground and there was nobody there to help them, and it made them feel lost, abandoned, worried, and although that seems quite small now, looking back for them as an adult, that program has been running in their subconscious mind since then. So it's almost like closing the apps on your phone to, interrupt that program and create new positive neurological pathways.
We always say, I've got 3 older sisters, and they're quite a lot older, and one of them pleaded with my mother to be able to take me around the block in the pram, and she hit a pothole, and I tipped out, hit my head on the floor.
Oh my god!
And so we blame her for everything.
Oh my goodness! It might not even be that.
It's definitely her fault, whether it is or not. But a family joke that I like to bring up every so often. So I've seen recently that you're starting a PhD. Is that right?
Well, no. So I'm currently doing a master's.
Master's, okay.
And then I'd like to apply for the doctorate in September. The clinical psychologist doctorate. Yeah.
And what's the master's?
So the master's it's a conversion course in psychology, and it's a stepping stone to the doctorate or the next stage to becoming a chartered psychologist. So it's quite a long journey, but I think it'll be worth it in the end.
Yeah, and that's the main focus for you moving forward. Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
Seems like there needs to be a continual development with what you do. Okay. Are there any challenges in the future, do you think?
To be honest, not that I can see. My business is growing very rapidly, and people are becoming more open-minded to holistic therapies. They like an alternative approach, particularly if counselling or CBT hasn't worked for them. They want to try something new. So I think that there's a huge development for my therapies to help people. So I don't really see any challenges as such in the future because I'm always developing my skills. So my business is just becoming bigger and bigger.
Sure. In the world, everyone's talking about their emotions and feelings more, and perhaps they're more open to what you do as well, which would help. Definitely. So if anyone would like to contact you, whether it be corporate or personal, how would they find you?
So my website is www.diamondwellbeing.co.uk. Okay. So you can just send me a message through my website and I'll get back to you. Or, you can just message me on LinkedIn or Instagram, Facebook, wherever you are. Okay. And it's just a nice, easy process.
Sure. Fantastic. Well, it's been a really interesting chat, and thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you very much for having me.
No worries. Stephanie Newton, and we're sponsored today by Bele Brownies, who've I can feel my blood sugar levels going up just looking at them, and Crag Spring Water, who supplied some water for us.